Welcome everyone to today's discussion. We're diving into a particularly relevant issue in our increasingly digital age: the complexities surrounding sharing children's photographs online. It's a practice many parents engage in, often with the best intentions, but it brings forth significant questions about privacy, consent, and the digital footprint we create for the youngest members of our society. The central question we'll be exploring today is this: should parents be required to obtain their children's consent before sharing their images on social media and other online platforms? To help us navigate this multifaceted topic, I'm joined by two distinguished guests. First, we have David, a child psychologist who advocates for emphasizing a child's right to privacy and informed consent. And with us as well is Emily, a prominent parent blogger who will share insights from the perspective of parental discretion and the inherent benefits of sharing family moments. Our aim today is to foster a balanced and insightful discussion on this important matter.
Thank you, Sarah. My position is unequivocally affirmative. Obtaining consent, even in an age-appropriate manner, is crucial for respecting a child's current and future autonomy and their emerging digital identity. One of the primary concerns is the permanence of the digital footprint. What seems like an innocent photo shared today can remain online indefinitely, often accessible in ways we can't predict or control. This creates a digital dossier, a collection of personal data and images that the child has not personally chosen or curated. The risks associated with this are manifold. We must consider the potential for future embarrassment during adolescent or adult years, the unforeseen impact on their personal relationships or even professional opportunities. Furthermore, there's the alarming risk of misuse, such as images being altered, used in digital kidnapping scams, or becoming decontextualized memes. Secondly, the very act of asking for consent, even in simplified terms for younger children, is a powerful educational tool. It teaches them fundamental concepts about bodily autonomy, personal boundaries, and the value of their own image. When we ask, "Is it okay if I take your picture and show it to grandma?" we are validating their feelings and giving them a sense of control. This practice builds a foundational understanding of consent that will serve them well in numerous other contexts as they mature and navigate more complex social interactions. Finally, we need to address the ethical considerations of sharenting, the phenomenon where parents extensively and sometimes excessively document their children's lives online. While often driven by love and pride, we must question whether a parent's desire to share should automatically supersede a child's potential future discomfort or their inherent right to privacy. Is the fleeting validation from online interactions worth potentially compromising a child's future peace of mind, or their ability to define themselves on their own terms when they are older? I believe that framing consent as an integral part of responsible digital parenting is not about curtailing joy, but about safeguarding our children's long-term well-being and digital dignity.
Thank you, Sarah. While I appreciate David's points on caution and respect for a child's future, I believe that parents should generally have the discretion to share photos, particularly of very young children, as it serves important familial and social functions. The emphasis, in my view, should be on responsible sharing, rather than a rigid requirement for consent that may not always be practical or even meaningful for the youngest. Firstly, let's consider parental rights and the natural inclination to share. Parents make countless decisions for their children's well-being every single day, from what they eat to where they go to school. Sharing joyful moments, milestones, and everyday cuteness is often a natural and positive extension of this parental role, a way of celebrating family life. To impose a formal consent process on parents of infants or toddlers who cannot genuinely grasp the abstract concept of online permanence or digital privacy seems an unnecessary burden and overlooks the inherent trust within the parent-child relationship at that stage. Secondly, there are undeniable positive aspects to online sharing, which David's perspective perhaps understates. For many families, especially those geographically separated, social media is a lifeline. Grandparents get to see their grandchildren grow, aunts, uncles, and cousins can maintain a sense of connection and involvement in the child's life. These platforms also allow us to create and preserve family memories in an accessible digital format. And for many parents, online communities provide invaluable support, advice, and a sense of belonging, which is crucial during the often isolating early years of parenthood. Therefore, my third point is to advocate strongly for an emphasis on responsible practices and parental education over inflexible rules. We need to empower parents with knowledge about privacy settings, guide them in selecting photos that are appropriate and respectful of the child's dignity, and encourage them to think critically before they post. Comprehensive, safe sharing guidelines, focusing on what not to share, like bath time photos, images with location tags of home or school, or anything potentially embarrassing, are far more practical and ultimately more protective than a blanket consent requirement that might be inconsistently applied or misunderstood. A balanced approach involves trusting parents' judgment, promoting digital literacy for parents, and, crucially, engaging in age-appropriate conversations about online presence with children as they grow and develop understanding.
Thank you both for those comprehensive opening statements. David, you've compellingly argued for a child's future autonomy and the importance of instilling the concept of consent early on. However, how would you suggest parents practically navigate this with very young children, say toddlers or preschoolers, where an explicit and nuanced understanding of online consent is genuinely limited?
That's a very pertinent question, Sarah. It's clear that formal, legalistic consent isn't feasible or even appropriate for infants and toddlers. The approach needs to be developmental. What I advocate for is introducing the concept of consent in its most rudimentary form. For example, a parent might say, "You made such a lovely drawing. Is it okay if I take a picture of it to send to Grandma?" And then observe the child's reaction, their verbal cues, their body language. Even if they don't fully grasp the implications of online, they begin to understand that their creations, their image, and their participation are things they have a say in. It's about initiating a gradual process of teaching them that their image has value and that their assent matters. This isn't about a one-off permission slip for all future photos, but about building a consistent culture of respect and communication from the very beginning. As their cognitive abilities and understanding of the world expand, the nature of that consent can become more explicit and meaningful, leading to more sophisticated discussions about online sharing as they approach school age and beyond.
Emily, that's an interesting point about building a culture of respect. You, on the other hand, champion the connective benefits of sharing and parental judgment. How do you propose parents reconcile those very real benefits with the undeniable risks of a child's image potentially being misused, or the child later expressing significant regret over content shared without their direct, understood input years down the line?
The key, Sarah, lies in proactive, responsible parental behavior and a keen awareness of context. It's not an either-or situation. We can enjoy the benefits while diligently mitigating the risks. The overwhelming majority of online sharing by parents is done with immense love and care, typically utilizing robust privacy settings and shared within close, trusted networks of family and friends, not broadcast to the entire world. Parents can significantly mitigate risks by being highly selective about what they share, avoiding photos that are overly personal, potentially embarrassing, even if cute at the time, or that reveal too much identifiable information like specific locations or routines. Furthermore, it's crucial to regularly review shared content and privacy settings as platforms evolve. I believe that an ongoing, age-appropriate dialogue with children as they grow is far more effective and adaptable than attempting to navigate a complex, potentially misunderstood, consent process for every single photo taken of a 2-year-old. It's about fostering digital intelligence within the family unit,
This discussion naturally brings us to a crucial intersection of these perspectives. David, Emily advocates strongly for parental education and responsible sharing practices as the primary safeguards. In your view, is this comprehensive education and a commitment to responsible sharing sufficient, or does the fundamental right to consent, particularly as a child grows and develops greater understanding, ultimately trump even the best and most loving parental intentions?
Parental education is absolutely essential, a cornerstone even. But I maintain it is insufficient on its own to fully address the ethical imperatives here. As a child develops the cognitive and emotional capacity to understand the implications of their image being online, their voice must become primary in that decision-making process. Good intentions, however loving, do not unfortunately negate the potential for future harm, embarrassment, or the fundamental right an individual has to control their own digital narrative and personal story. This isn't just about avoiding negative outcomes. It's about affirming their agency.
And I would argue, David, that this evolving dialogue and the increasing involvement of the child in these decisions is precisely what responsible, digitally literate parenting entails. It's not a static situation. However, attempting to impose a formal, quasi-legalistic consent framework from birth, or even in early toddlerhood, can be counterproductive and may create unnecessary friction or anxiety for parents who are already navigating so much. The emphasis should firmly be on guiding parents to make informed, thoughtful choices, to be sensitive to cues from their children, and to genuinely listen to and incorporate their children's perspectives and wishes more formally as they mature and are capable of that engagement.
To summarize my position, the choices we make about our children's online presence today have lasting implications. The digital footprint is remarkably persistent, and what is shared can follow an individual throughout their life, often in unforeseen ways. Therefore, integrating the concept of consent from an early age in a manner appropriate to their development is not merely a polite gesture. It's a fundamental lesson in autonomy, bodily integrity, and respect for personal boundaries. It is an ethical duty for us as parents and guardians to protect not only their present safety, but also their future selves, their future choices, and their right to shape their own digital identity when they are ready. Children have an intrinsic right to privacy, a right that should evolve into a right to control their own narrative as they mature. Thinking about consent isn't about restricting the joy of sharing. It's about profoundly respecting the individual the child is now and the adult they will become. I urge all parents to pause and consider, how might your child as a teenager or a young adult feel when looking back at the digital childhood curated for them without their input? Would they feel respected or perhaps exposed? A proactive, thoughtful approach to consent, viewing it as a cornerstone of digital citizenship and responsible parenting, is essential. It's about empowering our children, not controlling their narrative for them indefinitely.
In closing, I want to reiterate that the discussion around sharing children's photos online is indeed complex, but we must also consider the practical realities of modern parenting and family life. The desire to share milestones and moments of joy is a deeply human way to connect, to build community, and to preserve precious memories. My argument centers on trusting parents' ability to make good judgments for their children, especially when they are supported by robust digital literacy resources and clear guidelines on responsible sharing practices, rather than rigid, potentially impractical consent mandates from a very early age. The positive role of sharing in maintaining family bonds, particularly with distant relatives, and in creating supportive networks for parents cannot be understated. We should focus on empowering parents to navigate this space safely and thoughtfully. The key, as I see it, is fostering open and ongoing communication within the family. A dialogue that evolves as the child grows in understanding and maturity, allowing their voice to take increasing precedence over time. Ultimately, I advocate for a balanced perspective, one that supports families in sharing their lives in meaningful ways, while simultaneously equipping them with the tools and knowledge to protect their children's dignity and privacy. It's about responsible stewardship, not restrictive prohibition.
David, Emily, thank you both for your articulate, insightful, and passionate arguments today. You've given us a great deal to consider on this very contemporary issue. We've heard compelling points on both sides, highlighting the inherent tension between protecting a child's future agency and digital identity versus acknowledging the current realities, benefits, and emotional aspects of family sharing in our connected world. It's clear that this is a nuanced topic with no easy answers, and the most thoughtful path forward likely involves elements from both perspectives: careful consideration, ongoing education, and evolving conversations within families. We encourage our audience to reflect on these perspectives and consider how they apply to their own online sharing habits and the digital lives of the children in their care. This conversation underscores the ongoing need for careful consideration and evolving societal norms as we continue to navigate family life in an increasingly digital world. Thank you for joining us.